Hello guys, how you doing? We are glad you're here for another wonderful episode. Today we have wonderful Jesse, coach. He's a wonderful coach, as well as Mary and myself. And we are going to be having an extreme fun time today. Today we're going to be talking about evaluation and what are we talking about, Jesse?
Evaluation, making judgment about amounts and value. I think oftentimes as coaches, we can get stuck on pricing and how do I show the value and that kind of stuff. So I thought we'd take the conversation, or at least start the conversation in that direction, and see where the conversation takes us.
Mm-hmm.
That's perfect.
Yeah, it's always unique because, especially on this podcast, it goes everywhere. We always start out with something and have no clue. It's raw and unscripted. So, well, we are definitely glad you're here, and let's get started.
Sure, sure. Well, I mean, I guess I'll just ask you: were there any specific questions you wanted to kick it off with, or just kind of dive in and share some story and background?
Well, this is an interesting one. I like when I hear consultations. A lot of times people want to know, well, how much do you charge?
Mm-hmm.
And there's some coaches that you can see the price on their website, and it's
Right.
just look at the price. However, any good coach will not have the price on their website. Go to Tony Robbins. Tell me how much he charges, because it's impossible for us to tell you how much we're going to charge until we're meeting with you.
Right.
Know exactly what you need. Take the dive deep. So we'll have the consultation, dig in deep, and figure out exactly where you're at. So my question for you is, and I know we're not really talking about prices, but how we come up with those prices. So when you're meeting with somebody, how do we come up with those prices?
Yeah. Yeah. I get those texts too. Somebody's like, "Hey, I just set up an appointment. What's the price?" Well, I don't even know if I want you as my client yet.
Mhm.
I say it a little bit nicer than that, but literally, it was either a week or a week and a half ago. A lead came in, then I saw it scheduled, then I saw a text, and the text was, "Hey, if I work with you, how much does it cost?" And I said, "I don't know yet." Like, what do you mean you don't know yet? What's the scope of work that you need? They can't tell me, right? If I'm at a party and I run into a doctor, I'm like, "Hey, my elbow hurts." He's not gonna be like, "Well, let me take a look." He's gonna be set up an appointment. Let's figure it out. Let's do a deep dive. I love that, David. The word deep dive. I tend to use the word scope of work. So somebody with a broken finger is a little bit easier than a broken femur for a doctor to fix. It's less invasive. We're going to splint it. And probably 30 minutes. It's set, splinted, and you're on your way. And it's a whole lot cheaper than casting and surgery and screws and all that. Some people need in-depth surgery. Some people need a splint, and some people just need the bone set, and they're on their way.
Mhm.
So we have to figure out the scope of work. Within that, so I'm just starting into year 6 of coaching. Started August 1st of 2020, and pricing has evolved. It's iterated and iterated and iterated and iterated, and probably in the last 30 days, it's iterated again. As
Mhm.
you dive into scope of work and you test some things, and you're like, well, that worked really well. And you test it again, and well, that didn't work this time. And other times, well, that didn't work the first time, and I never try it again or never attempt. And other times I think that'll work, just it didn't work with this person. Right. But figuring out the scope of work. That person, I said, I don't know until I understand income. Are we married or single? Do we have what's the debt? What's the range of income? What's your desired outcome? We talk about some of those desired outcomes, and some people, I just want to get out of debt and I need help doing that. That's it. Then I think I'll have it from there. Other people say, I want to establish long-term goals. I want to talk about legacy with my kids. I want to teach my teenagers. Mary specializes talking to teenagers, and parents. I'm sure about adulting with money and how to communicate that to teens. Um, and we might be all over the place. And so I asked this whole slew of questions, and it was interesting. I ran an experiment. I was like, well, let me just somewhat run a consultation via text with this person. If they cancel, that's fine. If they don't, that's fine. We have a meeting set up. And meeting was actually set up for today, and they canceled last week. But I asked a lot of those questions. I asked, what are some of those desired outcomes? What are some of your goals? What are the things that you want to accomplish? What made you reach out to a coach? A lot of those different questions, and then some of those numbers. And then he's like, I just need to know a ballpark. And so I was like, all right, I'll throw you a ballpark. And I was like, a ballpark this for 6 months, a ballpark this for 12 months. When I offer coaching, I only offer two options because I don't want to overwhelm. And so I do 6 and 12 months when I started coaching. So my introduction to coaching, my very first client had $507,000 in non-mortgage debt. That was client number one. They're like, "Welcome to coaching. Can you help us?" And I was like, "Sure."
Yeah.
And in the back of my mind, I was like, "Can I help them?" I did the thing in middle school that we do where you move the decimal point over, so the number's smaller. And I was like, "Oh, but it's like if they made $25,000 and owed $50,000. Like the ratio is the same." And in 20 months, I eliminated $507,000 in debt.
Nice.
It was insane. But that was my first client. I was making stuff up as I was going along, just doing it scared, as we say. And I said, minimum of a 90-day commitment, minimum of 3 months. Well, all three of us know that you don't get very far in 3 months. You're just barely scratching the surface. Session 3, they showed up like this. They're like, "We're not ready." And I was like, "Ready for what?" "Ready to be done." And I was like, "Well, we don't have to be." That was just a minimum requirement. So I upped the minimum to 6 months after that client. And I coached him for 2 years. Coached them out of debt in their first month with no debt. I'm like, "What do we do with all of our money?" I was like, "Whatever you want to now." And actually, last September they called me. They had started their own dental practice. They were working together, doing a great job. Had a team. They said, "Hey, will you come do a seminar for our team and teach them? Begin to teach them some of the things that you taught us." And so it was really, really cool because it was 4 years almost to the week that they reached out to have me come back to speak to their team. And so, but yeah, it's a deep dive. I vastly undercharged them. I charged them $149 a month for 2 years. I never changed the price either.
Well, and you said a good point. When I first started out, I started back in '97, and I started with an extreme cheap price. I grew up, but the thing is I always said, when you start with me, the price never changes. And a guy named Mr. Tim. I won't say his last name. But he kind of encouraged me not to do that. So I changed it to, well, when you jump in, because I don't believe in bait and switch, you have the price for 1 year. Now, it could be longer. If I change the price 6 months down the road, then you have it for a year and 6 months because you'll have it a year after I make the price increase. Because I don't believe in bait and switch, you know.
Agreed.
And I kept going up, kept going up, kept going up as I got more experience, as everything went, because tons of experience, you need to charge for it. But then pricing is your filter. If I charge you too much, like I know one coach, it charges $1,000 per hour, more than $1,000 per hour. And if you can't meet his price, then you can see one of his coaches, right?
Sure.
But, it's like, whoa, wait, how much? And so, I realized that there is a limit to what you can do. Like, you're trying to help people get out of debt. Like we say, with a coach, you can usually get out of debt in about a year and a half. You can become a millionaire in about 5 to 10 years. That can only be done with a coach because we're going to push you past what you think you can go. But when people are looking, they're trying to get out of debt. So you can't charge them this. So the way I do it is if you're in debt, you got one price. If you're out of debt, you got a different price. It depends on which coaching do you want. Now I don't tell them that when I'm in the consultation, but basically I have two prices. And I
Here's
figure
what it
out,
is to work with me.
yep. And I figure out, are you in debt? I'll be a little bit more, I'll be friendly to you. You're out of debt. I'm going to push you. You're going
Mhm.
to have the results. But I mean, I had this one doctor, and he's making tons of money. If I charged him $50 an hour, do you think he would even care? I mean, that's less than a cup of coffee a day for him. He sneezes more than that. So, and if he has no skin in the game, he's not going to
If you
produce
sneeze around
results.
him, he's going to charge you more than that.
Yeah, you know. So, I mean, we have to have skin in the game.
Absolutely.
You
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
So, you have to charge accordingly. But
right.
I'm not going to charge a doctor the same price I'm going to charge somebody that's in debt because, we want to
Yeah,
make it comfortable for you.
Right.
right. When I talk about scope of work, really we're driving at what's the outcome, what's the vision, what's the dream. Oftentimes in a consultation, we realize they're in debt, have all this credit card because they had no vision, they had no dream.
Mhm.
Proverbs tells us without a vision, the people perish, right? We're just wandering around aimlessly, no goals, no vision, not sure what. And so if I don't have a vision for the future, why wouldn't I go buy Starbucks or whatever your favorite coffee spot is every single day?
Hmm.
Why wouldn't I go get the new car or lease a car so I'm driving something new all the time? Why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I? And it's always the why not
Mhm.
instead of asking ourselves the question why.
Hmm.
When we ask ourselves the question why do my wife and I, 14 years running, still get cash for groceries, still get cash for restaurants, still get cash for specific categories in our budget?
Mhm.
Because we know us, and there's been a few months here and there where we didn't, and like, the grocery bill was
Yeah.
picking up.
Yeah.
Cash is finite. Why? I like to joke around and say, I don't want to eat my vacations. And I sure don't want to eat my retirement at restaurants.
Hmm.
I met with a couple last month, and they said, he's like, yeah, the prior month in August, they'd spent $2,600 at restaurants. I said, cool. Was it good? He said, it wasn't that good. But I also challenge coaches, and David, you alluded to this. If you can't charge a doctor the same thing you're charging a waiter, right?
Right.
Not dollar amount wise. What about a percentage?
Hmm.
Can we charge the same percent? That's the model that I switched to. Quarter 4 of 2022 was when I said, I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to experiment with it. And I was halfway convinced that it would fail. And it didn't. And I've never switched back for 2.5 more years, almost 3 years now. The percentage model makes sure there is skin in the game. And I don't have to question or get stuck in imposter syndrome of, am I worth it? Is my value worth this much per hour? Is this investment worth that outcome?
Hmm.
So I'm not charging per hour, I'm charging per outcome. If you want me to help guide you to that outcome, will your life be 4% better if you have a coach, or 5%? I mean, I think it's 20%, but I'm not charging 20% of their income. But I can rest assured in that 4 to 5% range, that's where I'm right now. Until I hit a certain floor, like to feed my family, I can't be charging less than this unless
Right.
there's some kind of extreme situation and I just feel like Holy Spirit's saying, coach them anyways.
Hmm.
And that happens from time to time.
The
Yeah.
ministry clients got to.
Yeah. And
Correct.
typically, I do one client every 10. You seed sowings, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm the same way. So I do a certain percentage,
Hmm.
but here's my minimum. So at a certain dollar amount, you're going to meet that percentage, and then over that dollar amount, you're going to meet that percentage.
Correct.
So that's definitely the way to go. But that's only people that's out of debt. When they're under debt, when they're have the piles piling on them, I want to
Hmm.
help their burden. You know.
Yeah. Have you ever had somebody, higher income earner, they were in debt, and because you didn't use the percentage model, they kind of didn't take it seriously? Like that, my brother came in town and we went out to eat. And I'm like, you spent more on wine than you spent on coaching because I undercharged them.
Mhm.
Mhm.
You know, um, it is a struggle, and it's a constant thing on all of our minds. Like, what's fair, what's not fair? How do I make sure that it's fair? How do I make sure it's enough to keep their attention, not so much it takes food off their table? Um, in fact, last week I had a consultation. It ran long, but fascinating story. Fascinating gentleman. And I went over an hour with the consultation, but I had a cancellation, and I was like, "Hey, I got extra time. Do you want it?" He was like, "Sure." But right around the hour mark, he said, "Yeah, coaching's like the greatest grift of all time because you can just charge whatever, and how do I know if it's worth it or not?" And then not 30 minutes later, he paid in full for 6 months. So maybe I'm a good grifter. Maybe I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I think that's what you are, Jesse, a good grifter.
But now, and in the beginning, it's very, very challenging. There's a lot of question of worth. There's not the stories to lean on. Now I lean on stories, and almost any client situation, most of the time, you can find somebody in your archives of clients that you've worked with. And David, you've been doing it longer than me, so you can find somebody like, oh, I remember this person made this income and they had this much debt. It's close enough that this person will relate to that story.
Mm-hmm.
So when I talk about that story and talk about that client's success and say they needed pushing, they needed that kick in the pants, and I wear a 13, so it was a big kick in the pants.
Well, it's
That's a
funny.
big cake.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I also have my own testimonies I use. When you were talking about eating, right, eating out and stuff like that,
Mhm.
before I did my first budget, for me, I ate out all the time. For the simple fact is, it was cheaper for me to eat out than it was for me to eat at home. When I did my first budget and found out that I was spending over $4,000 per month eating out, not groceries, eating out, I was like, wait a second. I can eat more in. Now, I don't eat leftovers, so I can eat more in and still throw away the leftovers and still be cheaper than $4,000 a month.
Just get a microwave, David.
See, I don't like that.
Wasteful. Must be wasteful.
Microwaves have nuclear and all that other kind of garbage. I don't like
Yeah,
microwaves. You
fair.
know, so if it is leftovers, I have to eat it cold. Like pizza, I'll eat cold. Well, usually I eat a whole pizza by myself, so I don't have leftovers. But that's beside the point. I'm a fat guy. For those that don't know, I enjoy my food. No.
Can I suggest air fryer because it warms better than a microwave?
Or loves their air fryer, but yeah, it brings it into perspective. And when there is vision, and I was having this conversation. I'm working with another coach. Been working with him for about 14, 15 months now, and we're now the vision of, well, what should my metrics be for my business? I said they have to support what the vision is for your family. That's all our business is. Yes, it helps people. Yes, we're helping people get out of debt. But if it's not serving myself and my family, then I'm going to resent the client. So everything, my business vision has to support my personal vision. My business metrics have to support my business vision. And so then I can go work backwards from that. Well, if I want this by this time, then I have to be here by this time, I have to be here by this time, I have to be here by this time. He's on track to get his house paid off by end of 2027. So as a challenge, I said, what's the balance need to be by the end of 2025? Oh, I hadn't thought about it that way. I was like, bite-sized pieces.
Right? Well, you know what I always love doing?
Yeah.
So typically, we like to go try to shoot down for, a 5-year mortgage. If you do a 15-year mortgage, you make double payments, you'll have it paid off in 5 years. That's a crazy number. But, I mean, they say I'll get a 30-year, but I'll make double payments. It'll be paid off in 15. No, it won't.
No.
Just get a 15-year mortgage. And if you make double payment, a 15-year mortgage is only a little bit more than a 30-year. But when you make the payments and make double payments, you'll get paid off in a third of the time.
Yeah.
We just did that. We moved into this house 6 years ago, got a 15-year mortgage and paid it off in 5.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell on myself because this was between taking FPU and then between coaching is when we bought our house. And I did a 20-year mortgage because it was just that much more comfortable.
Right.
But then we paid it off in 7 years, 1 month, and 27 days.
Right.
Right? Before I turned 35. And so I get to share the story of, like, hey, I've been on this journey for 14 years. I know in 14 weeks and 14 months, you might still be a little bit discouraged.
Mhm.
You might still be like, I'm still whacking away at this debt. Okay. But 14 years from now, what's that vision? And the vision I had 14 years ago was not as good as my life is now.
Mm-hmm.
The vision I have for 14 years from now is probably going to be not even half as good as it's going to be then.
Right.
Right. And that's the beautiful thing about having a process and sticking to it.
Mhm.
But same thing with my business. What's the value? Okay, I have to be good at figuring out the value and evaluating my business and evaluating my life and evaluating my dreams and my goals and my outcomes and my family goals, my family outcomes. And the better I get at doing that for myself, the better I am at coaching other people.
Mm-hmm.
I actually stopped using the word consultation, and I say it's a free coaching session, and I'm not going to hold back. I want you to experience coaching.
Mm.
If you get so much value in one session that you feel like you don't need it, then I've done my job.
Mm.
But if you get so much value and I say, hey, what was insightful? What was good about this? What would it be like to have more?
Mm-hmm.
People then sell themselves. I'm not even selling coaching. And then I just run my percentages. Here's what it is to work with me for 6 months. Here's what it is to work with me for 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
The client that was my last client of the day today, been coaching for 3 years. And she asked me in January of last year, said, how long can I keep a coach? Now that's a dream question, right? And I just said, as long as you're receiving value. If there's no value, I don't want your money
Mm-hmm.
or your time. But as long as you're getting value, her business has tripled in the last 3 years.
Mhm.
As long as you're receiving value, as long as it's impactful. She's like, I just view you as somebody on my payroll who works in my business. And I was like, cool. That's what it should be. I've been coaching for 5 years and a couple months. So, and I've got 2 clients that are 4.5 years in, and they say, hey, there's no end in sight for us. Why? Because now there's vision. So the question of value, I use their stories all the time, and I've got a lot more stories from them than I do from other clients who are in and out in 6 months. But when I can share that story, share that vision, the client that I was talking about today, client down in Puerto Rico, she started coaching her parents. Her parents are now debt free. Her mom thought she always had to work 2 jobs. Now she's working in 1 job. Now they're doing house improvements, and now she has a retirement date.
Mhm.
All because her daughter took this step and saw the value. And she was scared. She was like, wow, this seemed like a really, really expensive. And then now she says, you're not charging enough.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, I'll get you locked into a good rate right now.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah,
But
I
when,
have a client too. They're like, we were talking about what it was going to look like,
Mhm.
and the gentleman goes, you know, we've tried this before on our own and it didn't work.
Mhm.
What's going to be different this time? And I said, well, you didn't have me before.
Yeah.
And then he goes, how long do we have you? And I said, how long are you going to have goals? Because that's what we're going to do. We're going to keep chasing those goals. We're going to keep reaching for those goals.
Yeah. We'll pause and we'll celebrate, and then we'll say, all right, what's next?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And they're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm leading a group of coaches through a book called Extreme Ownership. If you're
mm,
familiar, Jocko Willink, Leif Babin, Navy SEALs, and they talk about a military story, then what the key lesson is from that story, and then how it applies to business, because they're doing business consulting. So it's a beautiful book, and it's about leadership, and it's about us taking ownership. I can't complain if my business isn't doing what I want it to. I can't point the finger at anybody but myself,
right.
right?
Exactly.
But they could talk about Hell Week in chapter 2. And that's where they just get ripped down. And some people think they can just be the best athletes and they're going to outgrit it, but it's the mentally tough.
Yeah.
He said when he was working with his boat crew, it was, we just got to get to that pylon. It's not, hey, here's the entire race. Here's the entire objective. Here's what we're doing. We have 1 hour of sleep in the last 72 hours. Don't focus on the pain. We focus on the next small objective. Why do the baby steps work? Well, because it's one objective, one tiny objective at a time. We don't focus on the big pile of debt. We focus on number next, as I call it, which is, I know it's improper grammar, but helps people focus on number next. What's number next?
It's perfect. You know, in the business world, as you know, I worked in the business world for over 20 years.
Mhm.
And as the execs were dictating, that's what they would do. It would be number next because they couldn't remember what number they were on. So it's number one, and then they just number next. And so
Yeah.
whoever was transcribing knew because that number next, Jesse, that's brilliant.
Yeah. Because if I don't need to be focused on $200,000 student loan or $200,000 in debt, I need to focus on 1262.
Right.
$1,262. Okay, now I need to focus on 2235, right? Whatever the number next is. and it's I'm not zoomed way out, I'm zoomed way in on what is the next thing. The same thing with clients. They're like, well, now that I'm debt free, what are you coaching me on? What's your next objective?
Right.
Do you know how to get there? Have you been there before? Do you want to go together? Right? What's going to be different? Like your client said, what's going to be different? Did you have accountability? Or if you quit and you didn't talk about it, didn't share your goals, didn't share your dreams, didn't share your vision with anybody, who's holding you accountable to your goals, your dreams, your vision? I want you to win. Hopefully not as much as you want to win, but there's been times where I've wanted my clients to win more than they did, and you know that doesn't always work out. But but having somebody in your corner, having accountability, knowing that, oh man, I better get X, Y, and Z done before my meeting with Mary, because she's going to ask about it.
I put a challenge out to one of my clients. I said, she's like, I just can't get a hold of all this spending. And I said, all right, it's the first of the month. Take out 1 to 31. Before you go to bed every night, write down what you spent that day, whether it was paying bills or stopping at the grocery store or whatever. And when we met after a couple weeks later, she goes, you know, that exercise really worked. She goes, because I actually didn't go to the grocery store because I knew I would have to write it down and I didn't want to. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I didn't go down that aisle because then I'd have to write down a bigger number.
Right. And it's the stories we can tell.
Part of the value that when I've shifted over to percentage model, I also shifted over to what I call coach on retainer. Instead of telling, hey, I'm gonna sell you this number of coaching sessions, and then I'm gonna sell you in the next package of coaching sessions, or we're gonna be on month to month. No, I'm your coach on retainer, minimum of 6 months. If we need to have 6 sessions in 6 months, great. If we need to have 10 sessions in 6 months, I'm available. But here's what it is to have me on retainer for you instead of doing billable hours. Right? You know, we like to take our shots at attorneys, but they do billable hours.
Right.
And then some companies, higher level, higher thinking people who are investing and saying, you know, it makes more sense for me to have an attorney on retainer. People who understand that that's actually a value add are more likely to call, hey, I'm on a car lot. Okay, get in your car and drive away. They're more likely to call me instead of being like, well, if I call, am I going to get charged for another session? I switched to percentage and coach on retainer. My clients communicate more with me. I have fewer clients at better rates. And I interestingly enough, as I was closing out the books for September, I realized I've taken in as much year to date as I did all year last year.
Nice.
So everything here is, you know, gravy over what 2024 was.
Right.
And that's what growth is. But that also increased my level of service, increased my level of accessibility, but also increased the value that the client saw on the front end. Well, yeah, if I have questions, and I tell them, hey, here's my boundaries. Here's the hours I'm available. And if you text, call, or email after this time, don't expect a response until the following business day. I'm in Eastern time. And I had a client out in Hawaii, and they knew, hey, we're a 6-hour difference. It's going to be the next day. Anytime they text me, it was pretty much the next day, you know. So, but the coach on retainer model, being very clear about my boundaries, very, very clear about the time, my office hours. And I'll say this to any new coaches who are listening. Set office hours. You might change them later on, but set some office hours so that people know when you're available. And the office hours can't be 24/7.
Right.
I have to have a cutoff time. My office hours, Monday through Thursday, 9:30 to 5:30 Eastern Standard Time. It's in my coaching agreement. Most of my friends can recite them very, very well because they know, hey, if we want to schedule dinner Monday through Thursday, it's got to be 5:45 or later,
Right.
probably 6 o'clock or later. Anything that we schedule, it's got to be 6 o'clock or later. But also, they know Jesse's not going to do any work things outside of that. Jesse's not going to be answering his phone at dinner with friends. And my wife, we set this up 3 months ago because it was outside of those hours. And I said, hey, and as we're getting it set up, I said, I've got to talk to my wife about it because it's outside my boundaries. She said, yeah, because it's a one off, it's not a habit. So as a one off, yes, I believe that I get to increase value. I get to serve a community of people, and I love that.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't do it every week because it would be outside the boundaries that I've set for myself and for my family.
Mm-hmm.
And so the boundary piece of that is really, really important. But it also, the retainer model for me has worked really, really well. It's increased the value that is felt. It's a palpable feeling for the client. And so when I quote that 4 or 5%, whatever that is, dollar amount, yeah, my rates, if you looked at my spreadsheet that has all my client pricing on it, it's all over the place. But their income's all over the place. Everyone
Right.
has the same skin in the game until we hit my floor again. But everyone has the same access within those boundaries too.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is really powerful. And I love the idea of a retainer. That is awesome. But
I,
we are at our halfway point right now.
Mhm.
So, first of all, I want to make an announcement to everybody. Our sponsor of the day is actually a VPN program, ExpressVPN. Everybody needs a VPN to stop and get those hackers away from your computer. A lot of times we go to websites, we don't realize where we're going, and it's a hacker website. It makes it look like it's a legitimate, but it's a hacker. So in the description below, you're going to see everything about ExpressVPN. It will give you free 30 days when you click on that link. Now, getting right back into it, I love that returning thing. That is really powerful. That's great. And I'm going to have to dig in deeper to you on that. So typically, the way we do coaching here is we do it, it's unlimited basis, meaning it's a membership.
Mhm.
So, like a gym membership, you're paying for access for one session, two sessions, whatever it is. Budgeting, we don't charge for because, we just do budgeting. As long as it's done through the email, it's completely included. And typically, you get one session for as long as you pay the membership. Now, we do a minimum of 6 months because obviously you can't do nothing less. But I found with memberships, you don't have that cutoff. And I know one coach making over $10,000 a month, they only have a 3% re-sign up rate.
Mhm.
But when you have membership, you just don't even think about it. You just keep paying for it. Matter of fact, I have this one coach, and when she's around, I actually say her name, but when she's not, I just say a coach. And they had a coach. It came up to the end. They stopped. And I asked her, I says, now, why did you stop? Well, my term came up. You could have renewed. Yeah, I don't need to renew. Now, if it was a membership, would you have quit? She said no, because I wouldn't have even thought about it. So that's why I do just the ongoing membership. But I like that retainer.
Yeah.
So I want to dig in a little bit about that retainer, if you don't
Mhm.
mind.
Sure.
So obviously, we're just going to make a fictional number. This
Sure.
is definitely not a true number. Let's just say you charge $250 per session. And so $250 an hour. Now, in a retainer, because people can call you up, would you bump that up to 300 and they get one session plus phone calls, or what would you do?
So my floor is above that now
No, I know. I said
for
a fictional number
for
because
this
mine's way
purpose.
above that
Right.
too.
Yeah, for this purpose. But oftentimes I say, hey, let's text an email. If it's too complicated for that, text me so we can set up a time for a phone call. Okay. So I had a couple of weeks ago, I had 19 sessions in 4 days. So you got to schedule the phone calls. Otherwise, everything's going to voicemail that week. And I'm like, I get to you when I get to you. But if it's a simple enough question, email or text, I can respond to it fairly quickly at the end of the day before I wrap up and get back with family. If it's more complicated than that, hey, do you have 15 minutes tomorrow while you're eating your lunch? Your lunch is at 12:30. Okay, yeah, cool. Let's set that up. Answer the question, talk through the mindset, send some challenges back. Most people are busy people, and so text and email works really well. It's every now and then somebody's like just getting started and they need the additional coaching. Sometimes they'll get biweekly coaching for the first 2 or 3 months. And then we stretch it out to every 3 weeks, and then we stretch it out to every 4 weeks. And then I have some long-term clients that I haven't called it a membership, but once we come up to renewal and say, listen, well, let's just go on a rolling 90 days. You let me know 90 days before you want to cut the cord. And about once a year, I'll just check in and say, are you still getting value? What's been valuable for you so far this year? Right? Which again is them selling themselves on the value, but it's also letting me know, hey, what I thought the value was and what they thought the value was might be two totally different things, but as long as they're receiving value, that's what matters.
Yeah.
The rolling 90 days thing, though, doesn't have an end date, a term to increase that renewal and decrease the renewal probability. I just started tracking this year what my renewal rate, and 62.5% of the clients who would have, have renewed and have continued on a rolling 90-day basis. So I'm going to round up and say that's 2 out of 3. Is that fair? I like to round up some numbers, but 2 out of 3 are saying, yes, I want to continue. I tell them, here's some outcomes that we've accomplished. Here's some outcomes that I see. Do you want to continue to work on those outcomes? Yes. Okay. I don't want to sell you coaching. You don't want to be sold coaching every 6 months, every 12 months. I'm going to put you on a rolling 90-day. You have to let me know 90 days before you want to wrap it up. So we have time to finish up a couple sessions, put a bow on it, make sure you're ready to face the financial world on your own, ready to face the next outcome world on your own. Man, that sounds great. People don't want to be sold to.
Right.
And most of us want to just coach, so I can just show up and coach and not have to sell the same person time after time after time after time. I also found that if I don't wait until the final session of that initial term, I do it the session before. Hey guys, hey David, you know what? We have a retainer through November of this year. Here's some of the things that we've accomplished. Here's some things that we haven't gotten to yet. Our term's coming up at the end of November. Here's some options for continuation. I want you to think about it for the next 30 days or the next 27 days, whenever we're scheduled. So they know the options to continue. If you feel like you're whole, if you feel like, hey, we got this, we don't need any help, you can let me know that in our next coaching session. Cool. We booked the coaching session. We close out the Zoom. But the next time they're like, hey, we want to go with this option. And I give a couple different options depending on what stage of their process they're in. People who are out of debt, they're working on paying off their house, or maybe they have their house paid off, but they're like, we still want some accountability, but we don't think we need it monthly. I've got 4 clients that I meet with quarterly. That's great. One of them I've been meeting with for 4.5 years. They're on a quarterly basis. They say there's no end in sight. Awesome. Another lady is retired, has military retirement. The same dollar amount drops in her account on the first of the month every single month. Paid cash for her house when she moved to Florida. She doesn't need financial coaching, but her husband passed and he was a spender and she's a saver. And she's like, sometimes I need permission to spend. So she texted me. She's like, hey, I'm thinking about the new iPhone. Go get the freaking iPhone. You're fine. And
Right.
even with that, even with a retirement account, even with all this stuff, like doesn't even have to touch the retirement account. About 30% of her income goes into savings, short-term, long-term. She's like, well, I don't know what to do. Who do you want to give the interest away to? We had a whole hour and 15-minute conversation about who do you want to give the interest from your IRA to this year? What nonprofit organization is really tugging at your heartstrings? You can give them $50,000 if you want to at the end of the year. Great for taxes, And we don't make decisions based on taxes, but she was like, "Whoa, I never thought of that." It does help. It's incentive, but she'd never thought of that, and so meeting quarterly really, really serves her well. So there's multiple different options, but then I end up with continuation clients. I'm not always frantically, that coach, he makes $10,000, but only 3% of his clients are returning clients, and it's 6 months, 6 months, 6 months, 6 months, 6 months. Well, that's pretty exhausting.
Yeah.
And then you get frustrated that, I don't have enough lead sources. Well, okay, one of your primary lead sources is current clients. Not just saying, hey, who in your family needs to have a conversation with me? Who in your community, who in your sphere of influence needs to have a conversation with me? But what other outcomes do you want to accomplish? And would you like help with that? Right? That's
Yeah.
our classic question. Would you like help with that?
Yeah. Would you
What would
like
it look
help?
like? Yeah, what would it look like to have accountability? You've tried this on your own; it's failed. It hasn't gone well. So, what would it look like if you had accountability? How do you think that might change the trajectory?
Mhm.
How would it help you and your spouse communicate? Hey, do you realize that this is what he's saying? Do you know that this is what she's saying? I'm unbiased, so I'm hearing both sides.
Right.
Here's neutral.
And
Right.
that's the biggest thing about the coach is, we have the different vantage point because when you're in the situation, you only see this much. And
Right.
that's why everybody sees their own. I don't know if people seen the movie called Vantage Point. They had one situation, they had six different people, all different stories of the exact same story.
Mm-hmm.
And it just shows us the different vantage points. Well, when you have a couple, you have two vantage points.
Yeah.
We're on the outside, we're looking in. We see the actual whole picture, right?
You have two vantage points and you have two histories,
Mm-hmm.
right? And one client, 18 months into coaching them, a story came out about when she was 11. So she'd had this story that had been playing a role in her life for 30 plus years that she didn't realize how much of an effect that had had. One of her family members sued another family member, and it was a whole messy situation. It was a parent and a grandparent, and it messed up relationship. And so there was like this attachment to, hey, I need to make enough money so I don't have to worry about it, right? So it doesn't become an issue. So it never, okay, well, where does that come from? And it took us 18 months to kind of uncover that. And there was a lot of tears in that session. Um, but it was a really, really powerful session.
Mm-hmm.
There's two vantage points, there's two histories. His history wasn't the same. It wasn't a stressful thing. There wasn't this baggage. There's baggage, and and sometimes it's good to get that dragged out to say, here's what the mindset is. Do you realize that this is created into a scarcity mindset or an abundance mindset or a, YOLO mindset? Figuring out what that mindset is, those vantage points. I tell some people are like, well, why would I hire a coach? I have no emotion attached to your money.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mary, how are you going to help me? I don't have the emotion tied to the decisions that you do,
Right.
so I can see it objectively. You
Mhm.
cannot. My own money, I have emotion tied to. But you making this decision on leasing the next, the next Lexus, I can tell you the facts, but I can also tell you where it takes, how it negatively impacts what you told me your vision was, what she told me her vision was, what he told me his vision was, what y'all's, I'm in the South, what y'all's vision is. I can help zoom out. Hey, don't just get sucked into the great sales pitch to the grift, if you will, of the leads. But here's what it impacts. Here's the long-term ramifications of making that decision. Are you okay with the long-term ramifications? I didn't have the emotion attached to it.
Yeah. And that's, I think people don't realize that until you kind of point that out because they're like,
Mhm.
why, why would I pay for coaching?
Yeah,
How are you doing things now? And do you like where you are? And do you
yeah,
like where you're going to go?
yeah.
How are you going to reach your goals?
You told me this is where you are. You told me this is where you want to be. Why aren't we there?
Right. What's
What's the?
stopping you?
Well, I just can't. I just no. It's not that you can't. It's that you haven't.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right? You're not defeated. You're not stuck. Stuck is a mindset.
Sure.
Mindsets can be changed. It's a temporary status. But
Absolutely.
if you're in quicksand, the easiest way to get out is with help.
Right. Sometimes you need help.
The more you move, the deeper you go. Matter of fact, we had this one client. They were in the same studios that all of us have been, and they were struggling 6 years, and they're still in the same boat. They got a coach, and in less than a year, they were debt free.
Mm-hmm.
Because a coach, we take you out of your comfort zone a little bit more. We make
Yeah,
sure you get those results, and we're there at the right time.
yeah,
There was this one person, um, they were running a race, and their coach was stretching them and getting them ready. The day of the race, coach wasn't around. See, even my coach don't believe in me. And he starts to run. He gets about halfway mark. He's about ready to give up. My coach ain't here. Who cares? Nobody actually cares about me. And then he sees his coach sitting on the hood of his car. Yeah, keep going, keep going, keep going. That gave him all the encouragement he needed to finish the race. Sometimes you just have to be at the right point when you know they're going to need it. You know,
Yeah.
that's all that makes a difference.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I was working with this one couple, and they paid in full for a year. It was awesome, right? And the wife told me a year later, at the 1 year mark, we did a review. And I said, what was the greatest insight? What was the greatest benefit? And she said, oh, our marriage is completely different. She said, a year ago, I thought he was crazy, but he was 110% in. And I was like, well, okay, if you believe in it. And she's like, I was 70% in. That was enough. And she said, I'd invest that 10 times over.
Mm-hmm.
Not just because of the debt that was paid off. They paid off like $60,000 or $70,000. I'd have to go back and look at the numbers, but $60,000 to $70,000 in debt. She's like, I thought we could take that several $1,000s and pay off a credit card. But he was convinced that he said he needed help. He looked at her and he said, I need help and we need help communicating. And so we dove in. She said she ended up more convinced. By the end of it, I think she was 130% in, and he was still at the 110%.
Well done.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it was a beautiful
that
story.
shows you. That shows the effect that you as a coach have on people.
Mm-hmm.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've had many clients. Like I had a Marine. He's like this, all in, and she's like way off in the back. 3 sessions, they're both all in.
Yeah.
Several clients tell me how much their relationship got improved. Because, the number one reason of divorce is money. Number two is communication.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're helping them build their communication back together,
Mm-hmm.
relationship's going to be improved.
Right.
Matter of fact, I had one client. It was funny. It was a single mom, and there was some issues with the ex-husband, ex-boyfriend, or whatever he was. The daughter was the encourager. Now, most kids, oh, buy me this, buy me this. You can't buy that. You have to get out of debt.
Yeah.
It was so beautiful. It's just great when you hear those stories about relationships being repaired. And we don't do much. We're not a relationship coach, but we are. We don't
Yeah.
touch, we don't interfere. I don't care who you date. I don't care none of that stuff. We're not into relationships. But when you improve the money, when you improve the communication, you are a relationship coach.
Yeah. Well, money touches everything.
Mm-hmm.
Money touches our health, the food that we choose to eat, that choose not to eat, whether we eat out, whether we eat in, whether we're eating healthy. It touches our spiritual lives, right? Do I believe that I have enough to give and be generous? Do I not believe that I have enough to give? It touches our relationships. It touches our mental health. Well, people who are in debt are shown to have greater depression, anxiety, stress. They're also more or less, I want to say it's 60%, don't quote me on the percentage, but if I remember right, 60% more likely to miss work because of stress, because of headaches, because of the physical effects that it has on that, and the stress that it creates. They're more likely to miss work. And it's like, well, that doesn't make sense. That's who needs to be at work the most, right? But it's also because it's like, well, I work for this jerk of a boss and I don't make enough money. You don't make enough money because of your financial decisions. And it's not that we don't make enough, it's that we're not allocating it appropriately. Right? When a coach can come in and step in and say, hey, it's not quantity, it's quality, right? It's choices, not the change that we make. It yeah, it's very, very powerful. And that's why we keep coaches in our own lives. That's why we, listen to podcasts, we read books, we are in mastermind groups or have our own coaches ourselves, because we have biases in our own lives, and we need somebody else to point that out, hold us accountable. Hey, you said this, are you going to follow through on it? Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, so that's, all that's from my coach on retainer model, creates the additional access. But I tell coaches, I want you to think about not, I'm making this per hour, or you're making it per outcome. And one coach said, he said he's got a client, been a client for 4 or 5 years. He meets with this client 1 or 2, sometimes 3 times a year. Client just pays him $10,000 a year. It's like, you're not going anywhere because I need to know that I can pick up the phone and you'll pick up the phone. I'm like, yeah, let me get 5 or 6 of those.
I actually have one client still on my old plan. Because as long as you pay, you had me. I never upped the price, and I honor my word. So when I told him that, and it is such a ridiculously low rate, nobody in their right mind would ever accept a payment like that again. But because he was so old, back in '97, he still has that same rate. Now, I might see him once a year.
Yeah.
Sometimes, maybe twice a year. I don't see him much, but he still pays it so that he locks that price in because he knows if he misses one payment, it goes up.
Come on, David, you got to share the number now.
I'll share the number because it has been made publicly known before. $50 an hour. Now, thankfully, I only have one client still at that rate, and I only have one client that's grandfathered in at the same price forever. All the other clients that I currently have is based on your grandfather for 1 year.
Right.
And I was thankful for Tim giving me that heads up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true. But he's probably paying per year what some people pay per month.
yeah, yeah.
And even less, maybe. So that's great. That's great. But those stories, like, he still sees value in it. It's
Mhm.
not just that he wants to lock in the rate. It's that he wants to know, hey, I've got David in my back pocket.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and he knows the value he's getting because he knows what my current rate is. And he's like, you're this kind of a coach, you're powerful, and I still got you for $50.
He's the grifter.
Now you think, normally if they don't have skin in the game, they're not going to be in. And a lot of times he doesn't even schedule, and he don't even care, because he's like, I know I'm getting my value. He don't have skin in the game, and when he does book, he's grateful, because he always has access to me whenever he wants,
Mhm.
And I ask him several times, why haven't you booked? Well, I don't need you. Don't you even want to catch up? That's fine. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's remarkable, and I wonder how long I'm going to keep him.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, like he said, you're a transformational coach. He's seen value. He's
hmm
experienced value. And so, yeah, $50 a month. Auto draft. Set up my auto draft, David.
everybody is set up on auto drafts. I do auto for everyone.
Yeah.
That's the only way I do it because I don't want to be a loan collector. I don't want to have to chase you down. I had one client that I was able to get them to become a coach and all that kind of stuff. And I told them, do everything prepaid. And if it's not paid by here, it has to be 72 hours before the session. It must be paid. Well, I don't even allow them to get the link to be able to book until it's paid. And this particular coach, they were fighting on getting the payments. Well, I know they paid 3 months later, they finally catch up. I don't let nobody go in the hole because I don't want to be a debt collector.
Well, we're helping people get out of debt, so we can't then create debt.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's just like, why? And I kept telling them, don't. Well, I know this person. They're okay.
Yeah.
You know.
Not all good people are good clients.
hmm So, but now they
All
finally
good
learned and
clients
they
are
don't
good
do it
people,
that way. Yeah.
but not all good people are good clients.
Both
Okay.
ways.
Yeah.
So we are at the wonderful time when we love to thank everybody. So first of all, this is the point where I love to make 3 announcements. And the first announcement I'm going to make is about these podcasts. So just this past Tuesday, we had a special podcast because it was International Podcast Day. And we made 2 different announcements. One, um, uh, William has promoted himself, and so Mary has stepped in, as you see. And second of all, it was International Podcast Day 2 days ago. And so we want you to celebrate. If you have a podcast, go to that video, post your podcast. Tell us some of the guests you've had, some of the guests you're going to have, and what your main direction is for the podcast. And also, if you have another podcast that you just want to share, please share it. And with that being said, subscribe to all the podcasts on there and share some of the videos. We want the love to be spread out because this is key, right? And so that's the first and greatest thing is the podcast. International Podcast Day. The second thing we like to talk about is we like to talk about, something money. We like 2 free, one, moolah. So we have this huge special coming out. And again, we love those international and national days of the month. So we have 2 days. This month on the 5th is National Get Funky Day, and on the 20th is National Nut Day. So from the 5th to the 22nd, we are having the Funky Nut promotion. What that is you will get any marketing that you do with us, you will get 50% off. Now that's if you have an ad posted here on the YouTube, on the podcast, if you have it before, if you are a sponsor. We also have other ads that go other places. If you pay for an ad of any place it's placed, you will get 50% off. If you are using one of those sessions where we will do the advertising for you, you will get 25% off of those. And all the links are in the descriptions below. Now, the next thing we'd like to talk about is for all those coaches out there. That's right, we're talking about you right now. We have something completely free. We have an all coaches community, and this is to help grow you, stretch you. It gets you connected with a lot of coaches. And so we welcome you to join it. It's free, and you have a lot of fun. There's a lot of free stuff that's given when you do small exercises to help your business. You also earn free stuff. Who doesn't want that? Now, the last thing we want to talk about is Jesse, we love you being here. We appreciate you coming on. And I know you want to tell us some good news.
Yeah. Yeah. Happy to. Um, well, my link is in the description below. My website. If you want to schedule a one-on-one conversation there, you can. Quarter 4, me and another coach, a couple other coaches are running a mastermind group, creating accountability, hot seat coaching, because a coach without a coach is like a doctor without a doctor. We've all heard the phrase. It's so true. I'm part of multiple mastermind groups that I pay to be in and get extreme value in. I'm invested in skin in the game, right? We invite you if that's something that interests you. If you're saying I need coaching, not sure where to start with a mastermind. It's kind of dipping your toe in the water, but how are we coaching people if we're not being coached? How are we helping other people grow where we haven't grown? So it's a quarter by quarter commitment, so it's not a long term commitment for that one. Schedule time to chat with me in the description below. You can go to my website, book a 30 or 60-minute session. Love to get to know you and invite you to join us for that. Accountability, setting ourselves up for success in 2026. We can't wait until January, can't wait until December. Caveat, my wife and I are having a baby in December, so the other coach will be for sure running the sessions in December. I have an asterisk by my name for any session in December. May or may not be there, but
Nor deny.
it's a great group. We have a lot of fun, but we push and challenge each other, and the more that the coaches, every coach grows, the more that the better our communities are.
Absolutely.
Well, we definitely thank you that, and everybody, make sure you click that link below. Dig into Jesse, learn about him, talk with him. And Mary, did you have any final words?
Yeah, my tagline, you just got to do the dang thing.
Not yet. But yes, that is a powerful thing. Jesse, did you have any final words?
Now, know your value. Be willing to experiment. Test some things out. If a percentage model seems like, hey, I'm going to test that out, commit to it for 90 days. First time I did it, I committed for 90 days, convinced it wouldn't work, started meeting a lot of higher income earners than I'd met before. And so then I was forced, based on my commitment to myself and accountability to my coaches, to actually quote those numbers. And when someone said yes, 4 months later, they said, we're underpaying you for the value we're getting. That was my first $1,000 a month client. And they said they were underpaying for the value they were getting. That rocked my world. And I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not going back.
Yeah.
If you want to talk more about that, whether it's in Mastermind, whether it's a one-on-one, schedule time with me. I'm happy to chat. I have an open link. If we get too booked up, then I'll close the link until I get caught up. But here to serve and happy to help.
Now, Mary, what's your tagline?
Yeah, well, just do the dang thing.